Hey everybody, welcome to NoDQ&A Video, the official Q&A series of NoDQ.com. I am the owner of NoDQ, Aaron Rift, here to answer your questions about WWE and maybe a little bit of TNA. We'll see. With that being said, let's get right down to your questions, which you can submit at formspring.me/AaronRift for the record. This is from Garbo83. Hey Aaron, love the show. In your opinion, do you think Stone Cold worked better as a heel or a face? I loved a lot of his post-WrestleMania 17 and through 2001, despite some people saying his heel run was a failure. What are your thoughts? Please answer in video. I think that when it comes to being a babyface and being a heel, it's easier to be a heel because you don't have the limitations that you have as a babyface. You can say what you want. You can act the way you want to act. You have more creative freedom. And I think Steve Austin really took advantage of that with the Stone Cold character. He broke all the rules. He pushed the envelope. He did things that nobody else had done before. And it's interesting because he was the ultimate heel. He was the heel of heels. And in the end, it turned him into an anti-hero. It made people want to be like him. He became a role model, as strange as that might sound. And he ultimately became the biggest star, arguably, in the history of the wrestling business. So that's how good Steve Austin was as a heel, that he became the #1 babyface as a result. As far as his 2001 run goes, you know, they had to change his character drastically to get people to boo him. I mean, that's why people saw it as a failure, because people just didn't want to boo Steve Austin, and he had to turn into this cowardly-like character. He was like John Wayne running away from a fight. And, I mean, Steve Austin, he was still great at it. I mean, he could play the coward role just as well as he could play the tough guy role. I mean, Steve Austin could do anything. I mean, he was tremendous. This is from DoucheJuice09. Key. Hey Aaron, 3 questions. Okay. Why didn't WWE book Orton versus Foley at WrestleMania? Do you feel like WWE overbooked WrestleMania 20? And if you were in the crowd, would you have booed Goldberg and Lesnar like Madison Square Garden fans did? Love the show. Well, as far as doing Orton versus Foley in a singles match, WWE had The Rock available, so they decided to go in that direction, have Foley and Rock team up one more time as Rock and Sock, and then save Orton versus Foley for a future pay-per-view. I saw nothing wrong with that because The Rock's not going to be at Backlash. So if he's going to be at WrestleMania, put him in there with Foley, and then you can do the singles match at a later date. I saw nothing wrong with that. As far as overbooking WrestleMania 20, I mean, it was a milestone pay-per-view. It was WrestleMania 20, the 20th WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden. If there's any pay-per-view where you're going to go all out, that seems like the logical place to do it. And as far as Goldberg versus Lesnar goes, I mean, I'm sure I would have gone along with the marks, and, it was cool to boo those guys. The thing about being a wrestling fan is that you love to get under the skin of the wrestlers. If you know that you are legitimately pissing them off, then you're just so happy and you're just going to keep doing it. And that's what those fans did. They knew they were getting to those guys and they were having the time of their lives. So I definitely would have joined in, and it would have been a great time. Hey Aaron, do you think Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar can have a good match? The thing about Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan is that they're mismatched. I mean, Daniel Bryan is a great technical wrestler, but he's not this big, giant, jacked up freak of nature that Brock Lesnar is. People want to see Brock Lesnar in there with guys similar to him in terms of size and personality and all that. With Brock Lesnar and Triple H, it's like two bulls clashing horns. That's what people want to see. They want to see the super heavyweights go at it. So it doesn't really make much sense to do Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan. You want to put Daniel Bryan in there with guys that are similar to him in terms of ability and the way he works. So, I mean, Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk, that's a good match. But Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar, I don't think it's a good idea. This is from Limehead7. Aaron, first off, great show. Second, what wrestler over the last few years except Morrison, did WWE drop the ball on? For me, two wrestlers were Lance Storm and Shelton Benjamin. Your thoughts, please answer in video. And this is from Ireland. This is a question from Ireland. I would have to say MVP. I think that MVP had a lot of potential, and he could have been a top guy in WWE, I think. And that was certainly how I was feeling when he first came in. I really felt that this guy had all the tools to be a top star in WWE. So I think they did drop the ball with him to a degree. And you look back at his last WWE pay-per-view, the Survivor Series in Miami. He came out there and he got this huge reaction. So how did WWE respond? He was the first guy eliminated. So yeah, I don't know what happened between him and WWE, and I hope at some point MVP will end up back in WWE and he'll get another shot. I mean, he's starting to get up there. He's into his 30s, so the time is starting to run out for him. I hope he comes back soon, and I think MVP could still be a major star in WWE. This is from Zach Holker. Would you like to see Kane versus Undertaker at WrestleMania again? Really? Who would want to see Kane versus Undertaker at WrestleMania again? I'll tell you what. They've had, 100 matches now? That's about 90 too many. No more Kane versus Undertaker. Please, do not torture me, WWE. No more Kane versus Undertaker. All right, this is another question from Zach Holker. Hopefully, it's a better one. What is your favorite WWE live event that you have been to? I would have to say, without question, WrestleMania 21, because number one, it was WrestleMania, and number two, it was a pretty good show by WWE. I mean, you had Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, which, for me, it was without a doubt the best match I've ever seen at a live event. That match was just unbelievable. And you had a lot of other good matches at WrestleMania 21. You had Randy Orton versus Undertaker. In my opinion, one of the most underrated Undertaker WrestleMania matches. And you had the Money in the Bank, the very first one. So I'd have to go with WrestleMania 21 just because it was WrestleMania and it was a very good pay-per-view up until the last 3 or 4 matches. Geez, another question from Zach Holker. You are the lucky one today, Mr. Holker. Who would you like to see in this year's Hall of Fame? Who should be the inductees? The obvious choice to be the headliner for the Hall of Fame would be Bruno Sammartino. I mean, he is the guy that put the WWF on the map. He sold out countless times at Madison Square Garden. He was the biggest star of his era by far. So it makes perfect sense to put him in the Hall of Fame at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania weekend. But, it is what it is with Bruno. He doesn't want to go in the Hall of Fame. He doesn't like the WWE. He's been on the outs with them for decades now. So it's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. The next logical choice to headline the Hall of Fame would be Mick Foley. Mick Foley grew up in Long Island, so Madison Square Garden is part of his backyard. And, you have that whole story where he went to the Garden to watch the Don Morocco versus Jimmy Snuka cage match. He was there in the crowd. And then eventually he went on to headline WWE shows at Madison Square Garden. Mick Foley makes a lot of sense to me. And I mentioned this before on a previous video, the idea of perhaps him being inducted by the 3 Faces of Foley. And one idea someone had was for them to use holograms. I mean, they did it with Tupac at Coachella this year. They had a Tupac hologram on stage, so they could actually have all 3 Faces of Foley on the stage via holograms, induct him. Something like that would be really cool. So I would put Mick Foley in there, and not really sure who else at this point, but if you guys have suggestions, go ahead and leave them on the YouTube comments. Who would you like to see at the Hall of Fame this year? Just leave a comment, and we'll see what people have to say about that. All right, this is from Jake Lewis 3386. Do you ever see Steve Austin wrestling again? If so, who would you like to see him wrestle, past or present? All right, let's put this to rest right now. This is the truth about Steve Austin. There's so many rumors going around about him that he'll be at WrestleMania 29, he'll be at WrestleMania 30, he'll never wrestle again. Nobody knows what Steve Austin's future is, except for one person, and one person only, and that is Steve Austin. Steve Austin's made it clear on Twitter that if he decides to return, or if he decides not to return, he'll let everybody know. That's the way it is, and we can speculate all we want, but at the end of the day, it's Steve Austin's decision. Now, if he does come back and wrestles one more match, it only makes sense to put him in the main event at a WrestleMania. There's no other way, in my opinion. You got to do it that way. As far as a potential opponent, I don't see the point in him coming back if he's just going to wrestle somebody that he already wrestled many times in the past. So that would rule out The Rock. That would rule out Undertaker. If you're going to bring him back, you want to bring him back against the biggest star of the present. Steve Austin versus John Cena would be great. Steve Austin versus CM Punk. That's a logical choice right there. And even Steve Austin versus Randy Orton. The Rattlesnake versus the Viper. Easy marketing right there. So Steve Austin against one of those three guys seems like your best bet in my opinion. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ&A video. You subscribe, youtube.com/NoDQCAW. Leave a comment, let me know what you think about the video. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook and all that great stuff, and spread the word. Spread the word on Twitter, Facebook, let people know about the No DQ&A video series, and I'll see you next time for more.